Some moments in life hit like a truck. You don't see them coming, don't expect them, but when they land, they change everything. For me, it was 8 words. 8 whispered words that shattered 6 years of marriage in an instant. I miss how my ex made me feel in bed. I froze. It was late, past midnight. I had just gotten home after a brutal shift at work, exhausted, sore, and ready to climb into bed beside my wife, Sarah. The house was dimly lit. The only glow came from our bedroom, where I could hear her voice, soft, secretive. I thought she was asleep. But no, she was on the phone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I wasn't suspicious of anything. Not until I heard that sentence. At first, I told myself I had misheard. Maybe she was talking about something else. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe. Then she giggled. A sound I hadn't heard in years. A sound I thought was just gone from her. But it wasn't. She still had that laugh, just not for me. I stepped closer, heart pounding in my chest. The door was cracked just enough for me to see her lying in bed, curled up under the blankets, smiling at her phone like a teenager with a crush. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. Then she whispered, "You always knew what to do with me." My stomach dropped. It wasn't just reminiscing. It wasn't just an old memory slipping out. No, this was different. This was yearning, desire, longing for something that wasn't me. I could feel the heat rise in my chest. A slow, simmering rage. I wasn't about to stand there like a fool, listening to my own wife fantasize about another man. An ex, no less. So I turned away. I walked to the closet, grabbed my duffel bag, and started packing. No hesitation. No thinking it over. Because what was there to think about? She had already made her choice. I threw in some clothes, grabbed my wallet, my keys, my essentials. My hands were steady, but my mind was racing. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she lain beside me, thinking about another man? I didn't know, and I didn't care. What I didn't know was that I wasn't about to waste another second in that house, pretending everything was fine. I zipped up the bag and swung it over my shoulder. One last look at the bedroom door. She still hadn't noticed I was home. She was still giggling, whispering, giving another man the version of her that I thought was mine. I turned away. I walked out. The night air hit me like a slap, cold and sharp. My truck sat in the driveway, silent, waiting. I tossed my bag in the back, climbed into the driver's seat, and just sat there for a second, hands gripping the wheel, breathing in, then out. My heart was still pounding, but not from heartbreak, from anger, from the sick realization that I had spent 6 years building a life with a woman who could throw it all away in a single whisper. I turned the key. The engine roared to life, cutting through the silence of the night. And still, she hadn't come looking for me. She hadn't even noticed I was gone. I pulled out of the driveway, headlights cutting through the dark road ahead. I wasn't going back. Not tonight. Not ever. The road stretched ahead, dark and empty. The only sound was the low hum of my truck's engine. But inside my head, it was anything but quiet. I gripped the wheel tighter, jaw clenched, stomach twisting with something ugly. Anger, betrayal, disgust. I couldn't even name it. It was all tangled together in a mess that sat heavy on my chest. 6 years. 6 years of my life, given to Sarah. 6 years of loyalty, love, trust. All gone. Just like that. Because she missed the way her ex made her feel in bed. My knuckles went white against the steering wheel. What a joke. I should have been furious. I was furious. But there was something worse underneath it. Something colder. A quiet realization that made my stomach sink even deeper. I never really knew her, did I? I thought I did. Thought we had something real. I worked long hours to build a life for us. I put her first in everything. And she what? Thought about another man while lying beside me? No, not just thought about him. Missed him. Wanted him. I pulled into a gas station parking lot, threw the truck in park, and just sat there, breathing hard. My pulse was still racing, but my hands were steady. I wasn't some teenager crying over his first heartbreak. I was a grown man who had just been betrayed in the worst way. I needed to be smart. Step 1. Don't go back. I wasn't going to be that guy. The one who storms out only to crawl back home like a fool, looking for an explanation. There was nothing she could say that would change what I heard. Step 2. Get proof. Not because I needed it for myself. I already knew the truth. But when things got messy, when she started playing innocent and twisting the story, I wanted proofs. Cold, undeniable proofs. I pulled out my phone, opened the home security app, and rewound the footage from the past hour. There was Sarah, lying in bed, smiling, whispering. I turned up the volume, stomach twisting as I listened. You always knew what to do with me. I miss how my ex made me feel in bed. Maybe we can figure something out. My breathing turned slow and controlled, the way it gets when a man is on the edge of something dangerous. I saved the clip. That was all I needed. No arguments. No denials. No gaslighting. When this all blew up, I would have everything laid out in front of her. I shoved the phone back into my pocket and stared at the dashboard. What now? I had walked out without a plan. My body had just moved, operating on instinct. Now I was sitting in a parking lot, a bag of clothes in the back, my whole life in shambles, and no idea what came next. I wasn't calling friends. Wasn't crashing on anyone's couch. Not yet. This was something I needed to handle alone. I leaned back against the seat, exhaling through my nose. I had a decision to make. I could go back, pretend I never heard anything, wait for her to actually cheat before walking away. Yeah, I could handle this like a man. No waiting. No playing detective. She was done. She just didn't know it yet. I threw the truck in reverse, pulled out of the lot, and started heading back. I wasn't moving back in. I wasn't coming home. I was coming for the truth. And once I got it, she was going to regret every single word she whispered that night. The drive back felt different. I wasn't the same man who had left that house an hour ago. That man had walked out in shock, blindsided. The man gripping the steering wheel now? He was focused. Point. Sarah wasn't expecting me. She probably still thought I was at work. Or maybe she had finally ended her little phone call, tucked herself into bed, and fallen asleep without a care in the world. She had no idea that her entire life was about to change. I pulled into the driveway and killed the engine. The house was dark now. The bedroom light was off. Good. I climbed out, walked up the steps, and let myself in quietly. Not because I was sneaking around. No, I wanted to catch her off guard. I wanted her to feel even a fraction of the shock that had hit me like a freight train earlier. The bedroom door was closed. I pushed it open. Sarah was asleep, curled up under the blankets, her phone on the nightstand. I stood there for a second, watching her. This was the same woman I had spent 6 years loving. The same woman I had planned a future with. And yet, standing there, looking at her now, she felt like a stranger. A stranger who had betrayed me in the worst way. I flipped on the light. She groaned, stirring, squinting against the brightness. Bah! She sat up, rubbing her eyes, then blinked at me in confusion. You're home early. I didn't answer. I just pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and hit play. Her own voice filled the silence. I miss how my ex made me feel in bed. She froze. Her eyes widened. I watched, waiting for it. The panic, the scrambling, the realization that she had no way out of this. You always knew what to do with me. Maybe we can figure something out. By the time the clip ended, she was sitting upright, her face pale. Where did you get that? Her voice was small, shaky. How's cameras? I said, my voice flat. Guess you forgot they pick up audio too. Her mouth opened, then shut. I crossed my arms, waiting for the excuses, the lies, the desperate attempt to gaslight me into thinking I had misunderstood. And, just like clockwork, she tried. I was just talking, she stammered. It was nothing, I swear. I was reminiscing, that's all. Reminiscing? I repeated. You were planning. She shook her head frantically. No, it wasn't like that. I swear, I was just. Cut the bull, Sarah. She flinched. You miss how he made you feel? My voice was ice. You're lying in our bed, calling another man in the middle of the night, and that's what you say? She swallowed hard. I was just caught up in the moment. And the part where you said, maybe we can figure something out. I raised an eyebrow. Was that just reminiscing too? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Caught, dead to rights. And she knew it. I exhaled slowly, my anger sharp but controlled. I don't care what your excuse is. I don't care what you meant to say. The only thing I care about is that I heard my wife wishing for another man while lying in my bed. She swallowed, her hands shaking. I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was pathetic. You didn't mean to hurt me? I repeated. Sarah, do you have any idea what you did? Do you have any idea what it feels like to walk into your own home and hear that? To realize the woman you've loved for years is thinking about another man while you're working your tail off to give her a good life? Tears welled in her eyes. It didn't mean anything, she whispered. I shook my head. It meant everything. Silence. She knew she had lost. She knew I was done. I picked up my duffel bag from where I had left it near the door. I'm leaving, I said. And this time, I'm not coming back. Her eyes widened. Wait, what? Just like that. I let out a slow breath. Yeah, I said. Just like that. She scrambled out of bed, panic flashing across her face. You don't have to do this. Yeah, I do, I said, stepping toward the door. Where are you going? She asked, her voice breaking. I turned back one last time. Away from you. Then I walked out. And this time, I wasn't looking back. I didn't stop moving. Not when Sarah called my name. Not when she followed me down the hallway, her bare feet padding against the floor in a frantic rush. Not even when she grabbed my arm just as I reached the front door, her fingers digging into my sleeve like she could somehow hold me there. Please wait, she gasped. I didn't even turn around. Let go. No. Her voice was shaking, desperate. We need to talk about this. You can't just walk out like this. I finally faced her, eyes locked on hers, and said the cold, hard truth. I already did. Sarah's lips parted, her breath catching like she had just now realized what was happening. That I was actually leaving. That this wasn't just an argument she could smooth over with sweet words and empty promises. That I wasn't some weak man who would stay, hoping she'd choose me over the ghost of some ex she apparently couldn't forget. You don't mean this, she whispered, shaking her head. Yes, I do. Her grip loosened slightly, but she still wouldn't let go. It was just words, she pleaded. I haven't done anything, I swear. I love you. I clenched my jaw. Naz, you don't love someone and wish for another man in your bed. You don't love someone and whisper secrets into the night, thinking they'll never find out. I pulled my arm free. Then why wasn't my name on that call? She went silent. Her hands trembled at her sides, but she had no answer. Because there wasn't one. I sighed, shaking my head. Sarah, I don't need you to admit what you were planning. I already know. Her face twisted with emotion, and for a second, I thought she might finally break. Might finally own up to what she had done. But no. Instead, she tried to shift the blame. You don't get to act like a victim here, she snapped, tears streaking down her cheeks. You've been distant for months. You never even look at me the way you used to. Maybe if you had actually made me feel wanted, I wouldn't. I laughed. A short, bitter sound. There it was. The real her. The woman who would rather twist the knife than admit she was wrong. That's what you're going with? I asked, crossing my arms. You miss how he made you feel because I'm the problem? She opened her mouth, then shut it. Because she knew. She knew there was no way out of this. I exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand down my face. You know what? I don't even care anymore. I'm done. Her eyes widened. You don't mean that. I met her gaze, steady and sure. I do. The weight of those words sank in, and for the first time that night, I saw fear in her expression. Real fear. Not fear of losing me. No, fear of losing the life she had with me. "You're really leaving?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I just turned around, grabbed my duffel bag, and opened the front door. The cold night air rushed in, biting against my skin, but I barely felt it. Sarah was still standing there, shaking, staring at me like she still thought I might change my mind. Like she didn't fully believe that this was the end. I looked at her one last time. Then I walked out. I closed the door behind me, and I didn't look back. The door shut behind me with a solid click. That was it. 6 years of marriage, of trust, of building something together, gone. The cold air hit my face as I stepped off the porch and toward my truck. My breath came out in short puffs, but I barely felt it. My body was running on pure adrenaline, my mind still catching up to what had just happened. Sarah didn't chase after me. I had half expected her to come flying out the door, to beg one last time, to throw more excuses my way. But she didn't. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to say. Maybe, deep down, she knew I was never coming back. I climbed into the truck, my movements slow, deliberate. My fingers curled around the wheel, gripping it tight enough to turn my knuckles white. I wasn't sad. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I wasn't the type of man to sit around, drowning in feelings, wondering what went wrong. I knew what went wrong. She did. I turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, and I pulled out of the driveway without hesitation. Without regret. Without her. I didn't go far. I didn't need to. I found a cheap motel just off the highway, checked in with nothing but my duffel bag and the clothes on my back. The clerk barely looked at me as he handed over the key, and I was grateful for it. The last thing I needed was small talk. The room was plain, just a bed and desk, a bathroom that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. It didn't matter. I wasn't here to get comfortable. I tossed my bag onto the bed and sat down heavily, rubbing my hands over my face. And then, only then, did the weight of it all hit me. I had no home, no wife, no marriage, just me. For 6 years, my life had revolved around Sarah. Every decision I made, every plan for the future, had included her. Now, there was nothing, just an empty motel room and a man trying to figure out what the hell came next. I pulled out my phone, staring at the screen. Missed calls. Texts. Sarah. I didn't open them. Didn't need to. I could already guess what they said. "We need to talk. Please just come home." I didn't mean any of it. Lies. All of it. I turned off my phone and tossed it onto the nightstand. Sarah was my past, and I was done living in it. I leaned back against the headboard, staring up at the ceiling. A new life started tomorrow. A life without her. And for the first time all night, I felt something I hadn't expected. Release.